Welcome, everybody, to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast. This is the second
Hello.
time in like 2 months I've started it that way for no good reason. Very exciting. I am Doug. Over here is Bug. And
What's going
welcome,
on?
folks. How you doing, man?
Been a interesting week for me. Feeling better finally. Been kind of up and down the past couple days, but I think I'm finally on the other side of this thing. So
Let's
feeling a lot better now.
go. Let's go. Big news right there. Big news in the trenches. Hey, today, actually, way back in 1787, was the signing of the U.S. Constitution by the members of the Constitutional Convention. It took a while for it to get ratified, and actually, I wish Tug were here because I would definitely make fun of him. Rhode Island was holding out. What the fuck, Rhode Island? You think you matter? You're the size of 2 football fields put side by side. You don't have a say in this shit. Ratify the Constitution. And then they did like 6 years later. It was ridiculous. Grow up.
Well, all right then.
Welcome to the show. So we are going to talk about football games because that's what we do. We picked a whole bunch of them, and we're going to talk about how we did, and then we're going to look at week 4 and pick a whole bunch more games. And as we've said, the idea was to pick fewer games than we did last year. That's definitely not happening. I think I've thrown that idea out the window. We're just going to pick a whole bunch of games every single week because why not? Also, very funny to me that, the U.S. Constitution, as I said, ratified 1787, at least for the most part. And several of the schools we will be talking about today were founded well before then. Wild how long the Ivy Leagues have been around. But yes, Ivy League is still going on, and this is the first week of Ivy League football. So we're going to be picking all those games because I felt like we should.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. Before we get there, though, we have to talk about the games that we just picked last week.
Let's do it. Hopefully we get through this pretty quick because, as you mentioned, the goal was to have less games, and we have significantly more. So
we have a lot more. There are a lot of games.
Let's see where we were at.
Things were, yeah.
Tug with a 2-game lead at 36-16. I'm right there in the middle at 34-18, and you're taking up the rear 30-22. Let's see how this week went for us. We already know the answer, obviously, but we're about to fill you guys in. Oh, it's a bad start.
Hey, I like this start for me, though. UNLV coming up clutch, having the best winning percentage in the Big 12. Too bad for them. They are not currently in the Big 12, or else that might matter. Speaking of Big 12 teams, Arizona fell flat on their faces, and Kansas State looking pretty dang good.
Yeah, so Kansas State was the favorite going into this game, which I did not realize until I talked to my neighbor who was a massive Kansas State fan, and I was like, oh, I knew Arizona was really good this year. You sure they're still going to pull this out? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And wouldn't you know it, Arizona got out to a 7-0 lead, and thought they lost that shit real quick.
No looking back for the Wildcats. Actually, shocking to me, though, how stacked this little stretch of the schedule is for Kansas State. Like, the next 3 weeks will essentially determine the winner of the Big 12 in my eyes. A lot of season to play out. Some crazy shit could happen. But Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas State, Arizona felt like they were in the mix. Arizona's knocked out already.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for the newcomers, but a lot of season left. They can probably, hopefully turn some things around and still make a respectable season for themselves.
Speaking of being unfortunate for the newcomers, I picked Mercyhurst at Robert Morris. Why did I do that?
I don't know. Because Robert Morris took him to the woodshed, winning 55-28. I didn't see anything from this game. Yeah, I didn't see anything from this game.
Back and spanked.
I also didn't see anything from number 4 Alabama kicking the absolute dog shit out of Wisconsin, 42-10. But I kind of expected. We were hoping maybe Camp Randall would play a little bit of a factor going into it, but Alabama's just so much better, even now.
It turns out the stadium was almost empty by the time they started playing jump around anyway. Yeah, that's rough.
And then a game that I actually switched to right when the most controversial call of the game happened. Number 16 LSU winning 36-33 over South Carolina. South Carolina returned a 99-yard interception for a touchdown, only to have it called back for a blindside block. Now, I guess technically by the letter of the law it was, but I think it was called because it was a hit on the quarterback and he sold the shit out of it.
Kind of similar, not the same penalty, but kind of a similar situation to what Kentucky went through against Georgia. Bad officiating made sure that the favorite stayed on top there, LSU winning narrowly.
Yeah, it was, for all of our audio listeners, I apologize, but the quarterback was watching the play and the defender comes in and hits him, hands right here, like one in the middle of his chest and one on the opposite shoulder, pushes him down so he can't make a play. And he was starting to jog that direction, but because he couldn't see him, fuck off. So we can't tackle dudes from behind anymore either. I don't. That shit pissed me off so bad, and it really deflated the Gamecocks in this one, as well as the stadium. They were unable to cash that drive in for points, and then LSU took advantage and went down and scored and won the game.
You would like to take dudes from behind. Anyway, moving right along here. Memphis beats Florida State. I'll hand the floor to you, good sir.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing how bad Florida State has been,
Yes.
solely because Memphis dominated this game from beginning to end, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There are still some problems with that offense, I will say. It just seemed like timing was off. This game very easily, Memphis could have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I'm not even kidding. They had a couple opportunities. They didn't cash in. A couple passes that weren't just completely crisp. But doing this against what's supposed to be a good ACC team, it still brings a lot of promise for what's to come this season. Seth Hennigan had 2 passing touchdowns, so another game where he has another passing touchdown. Will somebody stop this man from getting a passing touchdown? I don't think so, especially not coming up against Navy here this upcoming week. Memphis still finds themselves outside the top 25 this week, though, and I gotta think it's solely because Florida State has been so fucking bad.
Yeah, the best way to help Memphis's playoff chances at this point is actually for Florida State to start winning games, which is a bad place to be. But that's where you have to live as a G5 team.
Well,
unfortunately.
The one touchdown that Florida State got was the one defensive fuck-up Memphis had all game. And it was a beautiful 80-yard bomb from DJ Uiagalelei. Receiver just got wide open down the middle. Nobody over the top. That's it. That's the only time the offense got the better of them. DJ did come out in the second half. He completed, I think, 7 of 7 before throwing an incompletion. He looked much better, much more crisp for the Florida State offense. But at some point, they got to go to the backup. I'm honestly surprised they didn't in this one.
Well, even that 7 of 7 to start the second half, it didn't seem to matter all that much. No. Like, that wasn't even when they scored. It was just like a random couple of dink and dunks that he completed. Good luck doing that for the rest of your career, but it's not going to work too well. They ain't going to win you too many games.
And, like, I can sit here and gush over the Memphis defense as much as I want, and I could go on for a while. But I also got to think something's not right with that offensive line because Memphis was missing one of their best defensive interior linemen as well. And Memphis got 5 sacks, I want to say. Maybe more. They were in the backfield all day.
I mean,
even the last drive of the game, there were a couple sacks, and then DJ had to scramble and run for his life. I don't even know that it's 100% on DJ. I don't know that it's you can put. I want to say the blame has to be on Norvell, right? He put this team together this year, but nobody's executing right now. And maybe as the game went on, the O-line just gotten beat up to the point where they couldn't do anything, and it certainly looked that way because Memphis defense got stronger as the day went on. But man, it's It's a real big head scratcher down in Tallahassee right now.
It's equally crazy considering that, I only have 1 sack. They had 5. Whew. Very impressive.
Oh, brother.
Cincinnati planted a flag at Miami of Ohio. How fucking embarrassing is that? Big 12 team coming in there and cleaning up a MAC opponent, planting their flag.
And I got this is a good place to bring it up. I got in a weird conversation earlier this week about how USF, like, maybe they're gonna come up and make a jump up to a power conference. USF was in the Big East when it dissolved and became the American Athletic Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati was also in the Big East when it became the American Athletic Conference. So it seemed like a matter of time before Cincinnati went back to a Power 5 conference. It seems like it should be a matter of time until USF does. But Cincinnati seems like they can't get out of that mindset of being the little guy.
Yeah.
I don't get it, man. That is embarrassing. Fortunately, we all picked Cincinnati. We're all right there. And Tug just had to ruin the perfect slide picking Boston College at Missouri. But to his credit, BC controlled a large portion of this game.
They did, and it felt way closer than I expected it would. At the same time, I never really felt like Boston College was ever going to win. I don't know. It was a weird feeling. It was like watching Boston College do whatever they wanted to, but also it was a feeling of, yeah, Missouri can just turn it on here in any second. And they did, only won by 6 at the end of the day, but it didn't feel like that to me. It felt like a little bit more. But that's what we get with, Boston College being ranked for some reason. Speaking of issues for Memphis, Notre Dame winning at Purdue by this much is actually a legitimate problem for Memphis in a roundabout way, because this makes Northern Illinois look that much better.
It does, but I have full confidence that Northern Illinois is going to lose a MAC game or two. So I'm not. There are a large majority of Memphis fans that are saying, "Oh, the sky's falling because of Northern Illinois." I get it. I'm not concerned because I know how the MAC is. NIU is not running through that conference undefeated. They're just not. They're not that good.
I tend to agree, but stranger things have happened, including Notre Dame offering a Power 5 opponent to shorten the quarters and Purdue having to turn that down.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
And Tug was going for the spoiler makers, and not going to lie, I wish it had worked out that way, but also that was a dumb pick.
Would have been funny, but nope. Notre Dame does win by a lot, as does Oregon by a lot.
Yeah, and Oregon is, I would say, on paper, the much better team. I'm not fully back on the Oregon hype train, but I'm getting there. Going into Corvallis in a rivalry matchup like this, getting the job done the way that they did, that's huge for a program that's been struggling to start the season out. This should quiet some of the haters and some of the doubters out there.
Just what a great time for a bye week for them before coming back and playing at UCLA, which, again, what a great time for a bye week for them. So, Tulane at Oklahoma. Oklahoma actually scored some points this game. Very exciting for their offense to see that they still exist. We did all pick Oklahoma, but this also probably didn't look the way that any of us expected. Oklahoma really dominating this one.
Yeah, I kind of saw this coming. Tulane and Oklahoma have had a couple. I think that's probably the third time they played in the past 4 years or so.
Feels like it.
Yeah, and certainly we thought after what happened with Tulane against Kansas State last week, they'd come out ready for revenge and taking some of that out on Oklahoma. Unfortunately, Oklahoma is a much better team than Kansas State. They were at Norman. And yeah, I mean, I will say the second half was even. Both teams scoring 13 points. Tulane figured it out, made some adjustments at halftime, but they couldn't make enough adjustments on the offensive side of the ball to overtake Oklahoma there.
That's all it takes. It's one good half, and then one mediocre half.
Yep. As long as you can make sure your opponent's equally mediocre. Speaking of mediocrity, the Apple Cup goes to the Washington State Cougars for the second year in a row, which is insane.
More like the Crapple Cup, am I right? Got
Ayo.
Will Rogers, more like Won't Rogers, got him. More crazy, though, West Virginia at Pitt. What an insane game. Yeah, so Pitt won. Nothing else made sense. We all picked Pitt, so good on us. Sure didn't look like that was going to happen there. And then it did somehow, magically, at the end.
Gotta correct myself. It was not the second year in a row. The last time Washington State won was 2021. I thought, as soon as I said that, I was like, that doesn't sound right. That's my fault.
Yeah, Washington was definitely undefeated going into the playoff last year.
Yeah, yep.
Whatever.
But it was close.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. But yeah, backyard brawl in Pittsburgh goes to the Panthers. Kind of a wild ride there. I think it was 34-24 with less than 5 minutes on the clock. And Pitt ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in felt like no time to win that game at the end. We just recently followed some Pitt folks on X, and it's been very enjoyable seeing all those interactions because these two fan bases absolutely hate each other, and all the Pitt fans gloating has been entertaining as hell. After winning a game, it really doesn't seem like they should have won. But hey, you'll take a rivalry win any way you can get it, right?
Speaking of a game that was a lot closer than I thought it would be, Towson at Villanova. Villanova pulls this one out 14-13.
I felt something coming. I didn't get it completely right, but a 1-point game. I'm not hanging my head too bad about this one. Just pulling a random. Doesn't seem nobody's expecting this one to be a good game. I pull out a random 1-point game. That's all right with me. I can take it. Towson had a chance to win it at the end. The drive kind of stalled out. They were trying to force it downfield too much. But, yeah, that's all right. Get them next year, Tigers. At least it was competitive.
Moving right along. Idaho stomping Albany 41-13. We all took the Vandals. I thought the claim made that Idaho was a legitimate contender in the FCS was a little copium by the Oregon faithful. Starting to look like it might be legit.
Yeah, we're going to find out again. We're going to keep finding out. Like, they play a Big Sky schedule. They also played ranked Albany, and now they have a ranked Abilene Christian this week. Like, this is a really tough slate for Idaho. If they come out of this as one of the top 4 teams in the country, yeah, that's a scary squad. So watch out for the Vandals for sure. Speaking of a game that's not close, by the way, holy cow, 41-13.
Mm-hmm. The next one was pretty close, though. App State beating East Carolina 21-19. Big win for the Mountaineers. East Carolina, 2 up and down at this point to really get a handle on.
Yeah, I don't know about either of these teams yet, it feels like. Appalachian State can do anything. East Carolina can do anything. And we have some interesting matchups coming up this week with both these teams that I, again, have no idea how to pick.
Yes. And we also apparently put way too much faith in the team from the 305 as FIU went down to FAU and lost 38-20.
Yeah,
Tug going perfect on this page.
Logically, you would say FAU for sure. It was going to be really cool if FIU pulled this out.
I would have appreciated it.
That's my defense. I'm sticking to it.
Next up, West Georgia. We're following them all year in their first season in the FCS, going to Eastern Kentucky. I'll let you take it away here, Doug. You were at this game, and Eastern Kentucky won 28-7.
Yeah, this was not close at any point. West Georgia made a couple of decent plays individually, like random points in the game. Other than that, Eastern Kentucky just beat the shit out of them. I was very impressed with the Colonels. Impressed with the energy of the Colonels too. Like that's something you just don't get a feel for when you're watching on TV. Getting them, see them interacting with each other on the sidelines. This is a motivated Eastern Kentucky squad. I don't know how much damage they will really do in the UAC. I do know that the UAC is not like that great this year with Austin Peay taking a downturn. Tarleton State, yeah, everybody's like interested in them. It feels like they might be a year away still. The only team that really feels like they have a legitimate shot to do damage in the playoffs might be Central Arkansas. If EKU only loses one more game and it's to Central Arkansas, I don't know. It might.
They could sneak in.
Could sneak in.
They could sneak in.
Big, bad losses to Mississippi State and Western Kentucky. Fortunately, for playoff selection purposes, those two don't count. So right now, in terms of playoff hopes, they're 1-0. Watch out for the Colonels.
Gotta love it. Next up, we have Western Carolina at Elon. Only winning this one by a touchdown. We all kind of doubted the Phoenix going into this one. But they put up a pretty good showing.
I don't know that I doubted the Phoenix. I expected it to be relatively close, and it was. I just chose correctly, which I'm very happy about. Let's go Catamounts, baby.
Mercer beating Chattanooga 10-3. As they do, Mercer has started off another season strong, only to get be somebody's punching bag in the SEC near the end of the season. For the Bears, though, I'm curious if they're going to finally be able to put a full season together. It seems about week 5 they really start to fall apart in the past couple of years.
Yeah, starting 3-0. If it ends up being week 5, we get another Wofford upset. I'm going to be very pumped for Wofford Terriers. Chattanooga starts 0-3, which you can kind of expect. Obviously, they're going to lose to Tennessee. Georgia State was a 3-point game, and then coming out here and losing to Mercer like this, I did not expect. So we'll see what they can do. They get a bye week, turn around, play Portland State. So that's a W, probably by a lot. 70-something to nothing.
Sounds good.
Yep. Get the Mocs right back on track.
Next up, speaking of Wofford, they fall to William & Mary 28-21. I was the only one that took the Terriers. I have no shame in this pick.
Hey, I wouldn't either. They're playing it to a touchdown with William & Mary. The Tribe have been one of those teams that are like, seems like they're in the conversation at least every season. And once again, they're right back up there. I don't know what to make of William & Mary just yet. Doesn't feel like they're that great, but it feels like they should be able to compete in the CAA. They don't play Villanova in the regular season, so we'll see what happens there.
Could get interesting. Next up, we got WKU at MTSU, and the Hilltoppers win with all their different mascot logos there.
100 miles of hate and 28 points of smackdown. The Hilltoppers on top.
And speaking of Georgia State, we were just talking about them not too long ago. They beat Vanderbilt. They got to host the Commodores, and they beat them 36-32. This should not have happened. I'm glad it did, but it should not have happened.
Yeah, why did you pick Georgia State?
Because I have that little faith in Vanderbilt.
Apparently, that's fair. I don't like that, but okay. Reasonable.
Next up, South Florida taking on Southern Miss. They win that one 49-24. We all took the Bulls. Yeah, I think they're going to have a pretty solid season this year. They're going to be somebody to contend with in the American Athletic Conference for sure. And then UIW at SIU. The Salukis hold on 35-28, but UIW certainly made it interesting near the end of that one.
Yeah, UIW is off to a rough start, and we're off to a rough start in this game, coincidentally. Maybe they can treat the season like this game as well, come back strong in the second half.
Yeah, it came down to a Hail Mary attempt that had to be swatted down out of the air. Salukis really got to figure out how to play a full game, especially coming up this week. And we'll talk about that game later as well. Next up, we have Southern at Jackson State. We all took the Tigers, and it paid off for us. They win 33-15 in Jackson.
Yeah, no problem for JSU. Like you said, actually.
Next up, we got Auburn hosting New Mexico, and I wish I had been able to see this one because, again, we're following New Mexico. They've been fun the first 2 weeks of the season. Curious if they did anything even remotely entertaining in this one because they got absolutely fucking stomped. Auburn wins 45-19.
Yeah, it wasn't even like the Arizona game where there was at least some hope for New Mexico at some points. This was somehow New Mexico won the time of possession battle, almost put up as many yards, but just did not score.
I mean, that's still
That's
kind of
cool.
fun, too. I'm not going to lie to you.
That's interesting. I'll tell you that much. And we have said they are the most interesting 0-3 team in the country. I don't know if that's true or not. Florida State being 0-3 makes it very interesting, but
For
in
a
a
different
bad
reason.
way.
Yeah.
New Mexico's interesting in like they might be a fun team to watch occasionally.
Yeah.
0-3 kind of a team.
Next up, we got Indiana heading out to LA, and they beat the dog shit out of UCLA. What the fuck happened here? 42-13. You called it.
You best start believing in Hoosier stories because you're in one. This shit is interesting. Now with Indiana, it's a combination of so there's been a rise. I've been thinking about this recently, and I've never tried to explain it to anybody before. So doing it live is scary. We're just gonna go for it. There is an element of like recent success amongst fast rising coaches has been fascinating to watch. And trying to think of why that would be. Coaches that are extremely successful very quickly are usually that way because they've made something simple and executable for just the average player, whoever you can get your hands on, will be able to operate this system. I don't know if that's sustainable in any long-term program building scenario, and I don't know if that's sustainable at a big program where you have the highest level of talent. But where you have a team of transfers, you want the kind of coach who can come in and implement a really simple, straightforward scheme that everybody can execute. Curtis Rourke can come over from Ohio. He has enough experience to understand loosely what defense looks like. That's all you need because we're asking you to check down. We're asking you to hit quick out routes. We're asking you to make really short, accurate throws. That's something Curtis Rourke can do very well. I don't think Kurt Signetti's system is a long-term program building system. And I think that's part of why he's been willing to leave as quickly as he has. I mean, JMU, sure, what he did there was phenomenal. Is that really sustainable over multiple recruiting cycles? I'm not certain. I'm not saying that it's not, but I don't know. And what usually happens when you get to the highest level of something, like in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, you have to build the program from the ground up the traditional way. That's not the way Indiana is built. At the same time, you don't need to be 12-0 at Indiana every year for Hoosier fans to be happy. You need to be at least 7-5. And if Kurt Cignetti can deliver at least 7-5 every year for Indiana, he will have a lifetime contract. So if we're talking about what is success for Indiana, this if he can keep doing this, it will last him a very long time. But I don't expect Indiana to be Big Ten title contenders or anything. Just against a team like UCLA this year. Yeah, I think we can start expecting to see Indiana beat a team like UCLA year in and year out while Kurt Cignetti is there. Maybe that was a really long-winded way of saying that Kurt Cignetti is a pretty good coach. But I don't think he's the kind of coach who would be able to handle a national championship expectation program of. I don't think Kurt Cignetti's going to replace Kalen DeBoer.
Right. You're onto something, though, because this is not the first time we've seen this. We've seen fast risers at different schools, and they go their first season into a new school. They have some success. They have some struggle. With the transfer portal, I think we're going to see more successes. I think that's really more of what you're seeing. And I think that's kind of the culmination of all of it, where it's not like you go to a school and you have all the old coaches' players and you got to figure out a way to make it work and you have your growing pains. You can come in and be fairly successful nowadays year one as a new coach somewhere. So I absolutely get it. It makes sense. Curious if Indiana's going to be able to hold on to him and actually build a football powerhouse here. Is that their goal? I don't know. And if it's not, maybe he's exactly the guy you want for your program, though.
But also, it's possible that he's the kind of guy that if it's not your goal to be a football powerhouse, well, he's going to go find a program that it is their goal. Maybe we're talking about Kurt Cignetti as the head coach of Florida in a couple of years after they fire somebody else.
Or, hear me out, Arkansas. But I digress. Our next game, we had Colorado at Colorado State, and there was plenty of talk all across social media with these teams back and forth. Shedeur didn't want to shake hands after the game.
Yeah.
Look, everybody knows the score of this game. We all picked Colorado. Real quick, what are your thoughts on it?
I just think he's not good enough to pull antics like that.
I agree, but he's Deion's kid, so that's why it happened. Moving right along.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why it happened. I just don't think he's good enough to get away with it.
This was UCF at TCU, 35-34. UCF winning this one. I'm the only one that picked the Golden Knights, and this was best case scenario for me. They only won by one. This is perfect.
Yet again, another unreal game. How did this happen? TCU was up 34-28. More than that, they were up 31-13 in the third quarter and just let UCF keep coming back. And then they went up 34-28. And KJ Jefferson.
If you don't step on UCF's throat, this is a program thing at this point. If you don't step on their throat and stay on it, you're going to lose. That's what happened here. Next up, we all took UC Davis over Southern Utah, and it was only a 3-point game with UC Davis winning 24-21.
Yeah, Southern Utah getting a lot of love after beating UTEP, but people have to realize it was UTEP.
Yep.
So UC Davis, the ranked FCS school, should be able to come out on top, and they did.
Yep, and I picked Southern Utah initially, and then I changed it. I was like, wait a minute, it's UTEP.
And then speaking of ranked FCS teams, Sacramento State proved that they deserve that spot, unlike Nichols, who was ranked because they kept it close against LSU. Close is being a relative term. They still lost by like 3 touchdowns. But Sacramento State also beat them by a lot and really did look good to coincide with the formation of the Sac-12 committee, where Sacramento State's trying to get into the Pac-12.
I would love to see that.
That'd be something else.
I would love to see that. But that takes us to our weekly results and who's in third. Doug, 21-11. What's going on, what's going on, man?
Letting me pick unlimited games has done a real hurt on my record, I think. I get caught up in eye candy too much, and I just get lost in the sauce. Keeps happening. I got a feeling called the blues.
Tug, who's not here to say his piece, he finished the week 22-10 in second place. Very Kung Fu Panda, very zen, very relaxed
Inner
here.
peace.
Very peace.
Inner peace.
And then 23-9. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing right, but I'm vibing right now. I'm gonna ride it out.
You are vibing, but are you vibing all the way up into first place after all of our scores are combined? And no, you're not. You're still second. Suck it.
58-26 for Tug in first place, 57-27. But what's more impressive is that you are now 6 full games behind me, 51-33.
So you know what that means? We need to pick even more games in week 4 so I have a shot.
Dig yourself an even deeper hole or start to climb out of it. We are recording this on Tuesday, which maybe we need to start saying what day we're recording these things on for everybody listening at home. If you're not with us live on Twitch or YouTube. But Thursday, September 19th, Southern Alabama, South Alabama will be playing Appalachian State on ESPN. For the first time, I think ever, I'm going to take the University of South Alabama.
I know. I can't believe it. I'm very proud of you, how far you've come. This is a big step in your personal development, personal growth. Also, bad shame. This is at Appalachian State. If they don't win this, I mean, come on. What are we doing? This is App State written all over it. At the same time, yeah, South Alabama might be better. Like, actually. But it's at App State. I mean, come on. That's the entirety of the argument. Unbelievably, right now, Appalachian State is a 7.5 point favorite, which I just don't buy. I would take South Alabama and the points all day. Maybe I'm nuts for that too. Who knows? I do know that Gio Lopez is having a heck of a start to the season. But then Friday, the next day, we have Stanford at Syracuse all the way across the country. The first time these two programs will have ever met on the football field.
And it's a conference game.
As conference rivals. The two big S's. One of them has to survive. And yeah, we're picking Syracuse, all three of us. It is in the dome.
Yeah, it's really that simple. It's Syracuse at home. Going to give them the favorite there, especially on a team that's going to be coming all the way across the fucking country. That's crazy for a conference game.
For a conference game. Then we got Nebernoy. The Nebernoy game. You have the famous kid who had the half Nebraska, half Illinois shirt.
Nice. I'm curious why you're going with Nebraska here.
I'm going with Nebraska because it's at Nebraska and because
Yeah.
I don't trust Luke Altmaier. Luke Altmaier is not good. That's my full analysis of Luke Altmaier at quarterback.
Fair, but have you considered Illinois' defense? Because
I have
as
considered Illinois' defense, and I counter with a competent quarterback for Nebraska. I'm not saying Dylan Raiola is great right now as a true freshman. I'm saying he is at
I
least competent, which is something Nebraska has not had at quarterback in a very long time.
want to see him get fucking obliterated.
That would be enjoyable.
If only because his
I
whole
do agree.
identity is being Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just be Patrick Mahomes. That's not how this works. Yep. Also, I have to say Kansas very much should have won that game against Illinois, except for Jalen Daniels throwing it away every opportunity he had. If you have a quarterback who's not throwing all of them interceptions, Kansas wins that game.
Was
This
he
is probably
throwing?
going to be
Was he throwing them, or was Illinois creating?
yes,
Exactly. That's why I'm going with the
but
Illini and that
but
like
I
sliver of state pride that I have.
Also we picked a word, INN. That is a word,
It
so
is.
that's cool. Very much enjoy that. San Jose State at Washington State on the CW wraps up Friday night. Just what is that game? I don't even understand. There are so many possibilities. It's on the CW. Ken Niumatalolo going up to face the unexpectedly 3-0 Washington State Cougars.
And it's Pac-12 After Dark on the CW. You got to go with the Pac-12 team.
Unbelievably, it is not crazy to say Washington State's offense really hasn't fallen off after losing Cam Ward. Like, John Mateer is actually playing this offense very well.
Cam Ward almost feels like a nice to have, not a need to have.
So here's Cam Ward is nuts. And what I mean by that is he does things that no one in their right mind would ever be able to possibly do. He sidearms that shit. He underhands that shit. He gets the ball 80 yards downfield by breathing on it. It's wild. At the same time, if he were my quarterback, I would hurt myself regularly at the thought of him having the ball in his hand. Just, oh my gosh, it is so fun to watch. But I was thinking as I was watching Miami against Florida, actually, I was like, actually, I'm so glad he didn't come to Ohio State. If he were Ohio State's quarterback, I would literally die. My heart would stop every time we were on offense watching this guy scramble around like nuts and sidearm the ball 70 yards down the field in between triple coverage. John Mateer is not going to do that. He's going to play a little bit more conservative, a little bit more traditional kind of offense, and do it at a pretty high level. I am impressed with Mateer so far.
Well, we'll see how
We're all
this
picking
one plays
Washington
out
State.
for him. Kendi and Mazzololo is not going to be able to beat this team, I don't think. Especially if he is truly trying to transition San Jose State to a triple option. He's not beating them year one.
I don't believe that he is. Tug just has a brain lock around that. And
I agree.
yeah. Also, San Jose State is equally 3-0. Very, very exciting for the Spartans. NC State at Clemson. Little rivalry game for us here that used to have some shine on it when people thought NC State was going to be good. And it turns out that they're not that good. Also, yeah. I saw Grayson McCall got benched.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
The man who pisses Teal. Look, I wanted NC State to have another good season. it doesn't seem like it's panning out for him. And yes, Clemson, most famously this season, got pounded by Georgia, the best team in the country. Now they're going to play a team that's not the best team in the country at home. And I have full faith in the Tigers in this one. And we should mention before we get too much further, Tug's picks were Syracuse, Nebraska, and Washington State, and he is also going with Clemson here.
I guess I'm reading now that Grayson McCall had an undisclosed injury, but
he's probably getting that heel piss thing checked out.
I hope so. That sounds like testicular cancer. CJ Bailey will be starting at quarterback for the Wolfpack. He is a true freshman. That's scary.
Oh, yeah. Clemson State all day.
Yep. We're all picking the Tigers. And then Florida at Mississippi State. Now, this is not a statement of faith in the Gators. This is a statement of what the hell is Mississippi State this year. We're all picking the Gators, and I feel pretty good about it. Weirdly enough.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on with Mississippi State, but holy fuck are they bad this year.
They just got annihilated by Toledo, of all teams.
Yeah.
Supposedly, I saw somewhere, this is the second worst loss ever by an SEC school against a MAC school. I couldn't find what the worst one was. 41-17 at home against Toledo feels pretty damn bad.
With the fucking cowbells, too. I mean, you cheat and you still get fucking annihilated like that.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Of course, we're all taking Florida here. And then the next one, JMU at North Carolina. Tug's taking North Carolina. I'm going with JMU because I just don't trust UNC. You're siding with Tug, though, and taking the Tar Heels. What's your thought process on this one?
I'm not siding with Tug. Tug sided with me. I picked way before you did. Get your facts straight.
True.
So North Carolina is the home team here, which actually did play a factor in this. It'd be really cool if they would play at JMU, but that's probably not going to happen while Mac Brown is there. I think he hates that idea already. The fact that it came out of my mouth, Mac Brown's going to come across the screen and smack me. At the same time, we saw this North Carolina team that I haven't had any faith in, and I understand nobody else having much faith in. We got to see them go up to Minnesota and pull out a win that they probably shouldn't have won. We've got to see them start slow and then pile on the points. I mean, North Carolina Central was up on them at one point, and then they won 45-10. Like, as far as anybody in the country, it feels like North Carolina is potentially one of the most battle-tested teams that we have, as weird as that is to say after seeing their schedule. But compared to what the expectations were for North Carolina, they've gone through it already, and they've figured out who they are. I expect them to be able to handle their business at home. Also, they are a 10-point favorite. Like, I don't really trust JMU's offense this season in any meaningful way. The defense is decent, but so honestly, so is Minnesota's, and North Carolina won that game. So I'm going with the Heels. We all know why Tug picked them, though. Their secondary logo is a foot.
Is a foot. Yep. Noted foot guy. Kansas at West Virginia. They're going to West Virginia, who's pissed that they've just lost the backyard brawl. Kansas is pissed that they've just dropped a game that they should have won, and they've had a week to prepare for West Virginia. Tug's going with the Jayhawks. I think Kansas revealed some kinks in their armor there. I'm going with West Virginia.
Kansas is 1-2. Their one win coming against Lindenwood. That doesn't inspire too much confidence.
Yeah.
I enjoy when Jalen Daniels is healthy and playing well. I think one of those things is true right now, and it ain't the playing well part. So we're going with West Virginia. At least they've been competitive. And Kansas, you can say they've been competitive too, but even that Penn State game for West Virginia, I know it ended up 34-12. People talked about it like, oh my gosh, Penn State's a legitimate contender. West Virginia was in that game deep into the third quarter. Kind of got blown open late on a couple of freaky Penn State moves. I think West Virginia is better than the way they've started. I think Kansas is who they are, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm concerned Tug took this solely because he didn't want to get memed across the board again. He wasn't here for me to shame him about it earlier, but I feel like that's why he did it. So
it is projected by ESPN to be basically a coin toss game, and the spread right now is 2.5 points for West Virginia, which is, I mean, they're the home team. They should get 2.5 points, but essentially that means it's a coin toss in the eyes of Vegas as well.
Next up, we get into the Ivy League schedule, starting with Stetson at Harvard. I'm going with the Crimson.
I am as well, but
and so is Tug.
Fascinatingly, Stetson is 2-1. They got beat very badly by Furman last week. Understand. Stetson is 2-1. Is that real? Do they have any hope in the Pioneer League? I don't know. I do expect Harvard will still be better than them, but I kind of want to watch Stetson, and if they play well at Harvard, I want to pick Stetson again at St. Thomas the next time they play, because that very well could be a fascinating matchup this year, with St. Thomas kind of taking a step back compared to what they were. We're going to find out if Stetson's for real. Probably not. Probably not real.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's also the first time we get to see Harvard this year.
Next up, we have Princeton at Lehigh. We're all going with the Princeton Tigers here. My whole rationale is that the Lehigh-Lafayette rivalry, and that's always what I think about when I see Lehigh, because it seems like that's about the only time we directly talk about them. They've pretty consistently been the worst team in that rivalry for the last little bit anyway, so it just makes sense. I'm going to go with Princeton here.
And again, we're talking about a 2-1 team, surprisingly, in Lehigh. They lost to Army, which, okay.
Understandable.
Well, they beat Wagner by a lot, and they beat Long Island, which, not saying Wagner and Long Island are great, but I am saying that those are games that Lehigh would have lost definitively each of the past 4 years. So for them to be 2-1 right now, that is cool for Lehigh. Rooting for the Mountain Hawks to do something this year. It'd be nice to see. Yeah, Princeton is usually kind of that, at least in the top 4 of the Ivy League, the top half. Usually about third. Yeah, we're all picking the Tigers. But I want to see how Lehigh does.
That's fair. Speaking of the other half of that Lafayette and Lehigh rivalry, Lafayette going to Columbia. We're all taking Lafayette here.
Yeah, Lafayette feels a little bit more legitimate. They had a little bit more sustained success over the past couple of years, and they beat the shit out of Marist last week, which, you know, you would expect a good Lafayette team to be able to do. They did.
And for these next two, my analysis is pretty much the same for the Ivy League schools. Brown at Georgetown. We're all taking Georgetown, and it's simply based on the fact that Brown has been pretty fucking bad for a while.
So has Georgetown, though, in Brown's defense there. At the same time, yeah, I'm going with Georgetown too. So not saying too much.
Which leads us straight into Fordham versus Dartmouth. You are going with Dartmouth. However, me and Tug are going with Fordham.
Yeah, the Fordham Rams have started very, very poorly this year. including a 33-3 loss to Central Connecticut out of nowhere. I mean, what in the world happened there? I still like CJ Montez even. He has just he's not the answer at quarterback apparently, and Fordham has not looked the same. Dartmouth is one of those teams that's always a little bit sneaky decent. Like nobody really expects them to be competitive, and they usually are at least in the fight every week. And their unofficial student mascot is a giant keg of beer. I'm rooting for the
Oh, fuck
keg
yeah.
at home. Let's go, Dartmouth.
Maybe I'm changing my pick. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. I'm not Doug. Next up, we have Cornell at Colgate. And you want to talk about a team that really hadn't been good in a while? We're looking at the Big Red, and we're all going with Colgate here.
Yeah. I know Colgate lost to Akron at the end, 31-20. There was a point in this game Colgate was up 17-3. So Colgate can at least start off hot, and Cornell, I would expect a misfire more likely than starting at all.
Moving on, stepping away from the Ivy League for a second here, Virginia at Coastal Carolina. I went with Virginia, and this is solely based on the fact that Coastal Carolina hasn't really played anybody. Now, Virginia really hasn't either, but Virginia's caliber of talent has been higher. A loss to Maryland and then beating Wake Forest. Again, like I said, who has Coastal played?
Is Wake Forest actually a quality win? Very
All
debatable.
right, does Coastal have any quality wins? And it hurts.
Jacksonville State is not the worst team. They are 0-3. I'm not helping myself. Temple is the worst team. They beat Temple too. Here's my biggest issue with Virginia. First of all, it's at Coastal Carolina, which is awesome. I love that. Also, Anthony Colandrea is just your gunslinger's gunslinger. He will flip 10 interceptions to get 8 touchdowns. This dude is nuts with the ball. And put that on the teal turf, I'm giving the Chanticleers a chance.
I do love taking cock-themed teams, but unfortunately, I can't go with the Chanticleers on this one. Tug can, though, and he's siding with you on this next one as well, Holy Cross at Yale. I am going with Holy Cross simply because they've had some time to work out the kinks this year. Yale hasn't, and I think that's going to be the one place where they're going to get the edge. The second place they're going to get the edge is that it is at Holy Cross. If this game was at Yale, I'd probably be siding with y'all and taking Yale here, but I do think Holy Cross is going to have a little bit more of an edge going into this one. So I'm going with Holy Cross.
That's actually fantastic reasoning, and I love Jordan Fuller for Holy Cross. At the same time, Yale's usually pretty good. And
I know. And
while I know absolutely nothing about Yale this year right now, I feel like I know enough to say Yale's at least equal to Holy Cross in terms of talent.
Certainly. And that's where I think Holy Cross having a couple games on the belt is going to pay huge dividends for them in this one.
Sure.
If Yale's playing a plethora of other teams, I'd give it to Yale. But man, this is a tough draw for your first game.
It is absolutely.
Next up, Tennessee State against Tennessee Tech, a school that I forget exists repeatedly. This is the new Southern Heritage Classic, if I remember correctly. And I'm going to go with Tennessee State here.
Yeah, we all went with Tennessee State last year as well in rivalry week. And then Tennessee Tech won 35-0. So I think anything is possible in this game. It's also at Tech.
Well,
but I do like the Tigers to avenge their loss and say no more of that shit. We're not losing the Golden Eagles again.
And Tug is the only one taking the Golden Eagles here. Let's see if he was right, because we all agreed on these next two games, which is also a little surprising and scary. We have Western Carolina at Montana. Montana has not looked that great this year. So I was really surprised to see us all go with the Grizz here. For me, at least, being at home, this is a good time to right the ship, and to do it against Western Carolina is going to be a statement win for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, Western Carolina has looked not very good, and it's at Montana, who has looked improved, right? As much as they didn't look that great against Missouri State, they did still win, right? And yes, they had that loss at North Dakota. How much do we really hold that against them? North Dakota is still a top 10 team, right? You lose a top 10 matchup on the road, that's fine.
By 3
It's
points.
not ideal, but I'm not losing confidence in you at that point. This would be massive for Western Carolina. Honestly, feels like they need to win this game to get back in the playoff hunt after losing to Campbell, only beating Elon by 7. I understand that means they're 1-1 as far as the playoff picture is concerned. They win their conference, they're in. But this feels like a must win to me. If they want to get any consideration as an at large potentially down the line, they win at Montana. Yeah, they're probably in the playoffs.
I would agree with you there. Next
But we're
up,
all picking the Grizzlies. So
yes, and we're all picking the University of Southern California, the fake USC.
I almost put U of SC just to appease you, and then I didn't.
But we're all taking the Trojans here against Michigan in the big house. This is surprising to me. Now, I will say I've had my doubts about USC this year. I have even bigger doubts about Michigan at this point. And
All
I'm
of
sure
my go ahead.
I'm sure that's probably partially where Tug is coming from, but it does surprise me that we are all going against Michigan at home. Surely they're not going to come out and lose a second ranked matchup at the big house, right?
I mean, they should have lost Arkansas State last week. Anyway, all of my fears about USC were completely assuaged when they shut out Utah State. That's USC's first shutout performance in a very long time. Like, unbelievably, I think I saw that it was their first shutout since like 2013, something insane like that. 48-0 over Utah State. That's the kind of performance I needed to see. Even more so than them going into Death Valley and beating LSU. Like, that was going to be a toss-up, even if it were last year's USC. Maybe that game is 54-51 LSU instead of 27-20 USC. But how far this defense has come in this little time with a new defensive coordinator is pretty damn impressive. Now, on the other side of things, Michigan has a new starting quarterback. They have announced that Alex Orji will be in at quarterback. Here's the thing. The reason he wasn't starting at quarterback originally is because he's even less of a consistent passer than the guy they just benched. So Orji is a better runner. How much that really matters when you have an even worse passer than Davis Warren, who has thrown 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the year. I have no reason to believe that this offense is capable of moving the ball. And now, especially against a defense that has shown it is capable of preventing people from moving the ball. Yeah, it'll be a good game because it's in the big house and it's 2 big brands and they're going to be fighting the hell out of this. So, like, Michigan needs to win this game. Absolutely needs to. It feels like a Trojan win to me. And they are favored right now by 6 points in the big house.
Which is fucking wild.
Yes.
Absolutely fucking wild. Man, It is crazy to say that loss to Texas has shaken anybody's confidence that bad, because I think if you told me before the season that Texas would go into the Big House and beat Michigan, I'd buy it. If you told me Texas was going to go into the Big House and dominate Michigan, I said, well, let's pump the fucking brakes for a second. I don't know what's going on with Michigan, but holy shit. This season is about to go off the rails if they can't win this game. And none of us think they will. So.
I kind of fully predicted this when we did our tier list. Nobody believed me. That's all right.
Well, we thought you were being an Ohio State hater. I'm not going to lie.
That's fine.
Moving right along, we have Arkansas at Auburn for the first time this year. Woo Pig Suey. I think Arkansas is finally going to put it together, and for Sam Pittman's case, I hope they get something going against the Tigers here.
I hope you're right. It'd be awesome to see Arkansas win again. You know, we haven't really watched an Arkansas win in quite some time. I know they're 2-1 on the season. Those two don't really count, let's be honest.
Yeah.
UAB and Arkansas Pine Bluff. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They should have beat Oklahoma State, so I understand where you guys are coming from picking Arkansas. At the same time, watching these two teams, it feels like I'm watching two equally pretty bad teams. Not going to lie. And if it comes down to that, I'm taking the home team, which is Auburn in this case. I don't love it. Yeah, and I am rooting for Arkansas in this game, but I'm picking Auburn.
Next up, we have Rutgers at Virginia Tech. Tug and I are both going with Virginia Tech, and you are a Rutgers truther, a Rutgers fan, a Rutgers lover. So explain to me why you're going with Rutgers and why you made us pick this game.
I know I even made the Rutgers R way bigger than everything else.
I noticed that.
So Virginia Tech got a whole bunch of preseason hype coming into the season, including by yours truly. I was very interested in how this Hokies team would do, and Kyron Drones looked so exciting at the end of last year. Then they go into Vanderbilt and they lose. They handled business against Marshall and Old Dominion, but I can't get that loss to Vanderbilt out of my head. There were some things that Virginia Tech did in that game that I don't think got tested against Marshall and Old Dominion. And if anybody's going to test them, it's going to be that feisty Greg Schiano who pulls some shit out of his hat every once in a while. Now, I don't have confidence in Callie McManus. At the same time, I feel like I've lost some confidence in Kyron Drones. So which quarterback do I actually trust in this matchup? I'm going with neither. Which leads me to which head coach do I trust in this matchup? And if I had to pick one, I'm picking Greg Schiano. And as crazy as it sounds, this would be a hell of a matchup in 2011. So I'm picking Rutgers. It's on the ACC network. Let's go Scarlet Knights.
Oh my goodness. Here's a legitimate question. Another game. Arizona State at Texas Tech. Tug and I are taking the Sun Devils, who have looked very good this season. And you're going with the team that's looked like absolute dog shit, the Red Raiders.
They've looked like dog shit 1 week. Maybe 2 weeks. Here's the other thing. Arizona State has not looked great, except for when they played Wyoming. They looked good against a Mississippi State team that we just talked about how fucking terrible they are.
That's fair. That's fair.
They very probably should have lost at Texas State and pulled that one out their ass, 31-28.
But consider with me for a minute here. Texas Tech's best win is against North Texas. They
Mhm.
very nearly lost to Abilene Christian in overtime.
Mhm.
And then they got beat pretty good by Washington State. So while I get it, I hear you. I get what you're saying.
North Texas beat your beloved South Alabama.
Whoa, hey, fuck off. They're not my beloved South Alabama, all right?
Here's the other thing. We don't know how good or bad Abilene Christian is this year. They took Texas Tech to overtime, and then they're undefeated in the FCS right now. It's very possible Abilene Christian's actually pretty decent. And we have seen teams start poorly in the season and turn it around. You go to overtime with Abilene Christian, you come around, you beat the dog shit out of North Texas. It's in Lubbock. I didn't want us to all pick Arizona State here and have the Red Raiders do Red Raider things to us. It's very possible they do Red Raider things to me now that I've picked them. But at the same time, I love the story of Arizona State this year. It's very cool. They're 3-0. They have not beaten anybody, and to say that they have is very misleading. Texas Tech's loss is to a Washington State team that we just hyped up. Their 2 wins, one of them is against the North Texas team by a lot that just beat a South Alabama team we were hyping up a minute ago. I think there's some legitimacy to this Texas Tech team that we're not admitting to ourselves right now. And I have personal experience with starting a season very slow and turning it around. Look at Ohio State at Virginia Tech in 2014. Then we have Ohio State all the way to the national championship. Let's go Texas Tech.
Goodness.
We're going to the playoffs, baby.
Moving right along. Memphis at Navy. We're all going with the Tigers here. This game is going to be played in Annapolis. I got to say, this is a little bit of a trap game for the Tigers. They got to keep focused on this one because surely they're looking ahead to MTSU. A bit of a rivalry there with an in-state team from another group of 5 conference, but got to handle business and take out an early conference opponent here in the midshipmen.
Part of why I'm picking this game for us, and the other reason was that they might be coming off of quite the emotional high, starting 3-0, including a win over Florida State. I know Florida State's 0-3 now, but still getting that monkey off your back and beating a big-time brand name like Florida State. That's not something Memphis has done very often in the past. To get that done has to feel great to these players. Now you have to turn around and face a triple option team. Good fucking
luck. And we've seen Navy take advantage of them like this before. So I am nervous about this game as a Memphis fan because I've seen this story played out a couple of times already.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
The Tigers.
We all are picking the Tigers. I will say too, this run defense has been fucking nasty. and Navy ain't going to throw the fucking ball. So let's go.
Right.
Moving along, UCLA at LSU. Now, this sounds stupid, and I feel kind of stupid for doing it, but I'm going with UCLA because LSU is fucking overrated, and they are going to slip up. They don't. I'm not calling. Yeah. I'm not calling this one a trap game because looking ahead in looking ahead in LSU's schedule, it's not like they're playing Alabama next week or anything. Like it's not like they've got a rough slate ahead.
They're playing South Alabama next week.
Yeah, right. So there's really no reason except that LSU is going to slip up. It'd be cool to see it be UCLA. It's really the best shot of LSU losing for a while too, I would say.
I think it's just fun that LSU has to play both the LA schools in the same season, and both of those games are in Death Valley. Also, I'm rooting hard for the Big Ten. LSU's going to win this game, man. I didn't even choose this game for us to pick by thinking like this might be a close game. I expected all of us to pick LSU here, and it's very cool.
You didn't account for me.
I appreciate the choice of UCLA. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, I put him on there, and I kind of went back and forth, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns here.
You have such a big lead on me. What's one game that hurt you?
What's one game?
Next up, Utah at Oklahoma State, which one of those games I was just talking about feels like the Big 12 conference race is coming down to this next couple of weeks already. I think Oklahoma State, Kansas State up next after this. Something crazy like that. Anyway, Cam Rising's hand got injured. I don't know how much that's going to affect him.
Motherfucker can't stay healthy.
However Cam Rising goes, it does feel like that's the way that Utah goes. Not necessarily in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of offensive efficiency for sure. And if you want to beat Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State, you better be ready to put up 40 points.
Yeah. How wild is it going to be if Cam Rising somehow guts this one out?
That would be impressive and put Utah right back up there in the top 4 seed conversation as a Big 12 champion, potentially. But we are all picking the Cowboys. That hasn't gone very well for us in the past when we have done this.
They like to break our hearts. So,
yeah,
we're going to lose. That's fine.
Yep. As long as we take the opportunity to criticize Mike Gundy and not the players, because he is a grown man and he can take it.
He's probably like 60 now, though, right?
He's a senior citizen. He can take it.
Yeah, actually, isn't that senior abuse? He's 57. Shit. Anyway,
he's still
Vanderbilt time. At Missouri. Why are we picking this game? Why do you keep making me take Mizzou?
Partially because it's funny to keep watching you pick Mizzou. Also, partially because I thought we were following Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's been a fun story. Diego Pavia, Jerry Kill is an advisor on the team. We love those guys. It's the spiritual successor to New Mexico State last year. And they will lose. At the same time, it does feel like Vanderbilt's good enough to trip somebody up at some point this season. And maybe that is Missouri. Maybe Missouri overlooks them. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I do want to keep following Vanderbilt. Maybe I'll be a little bit more selective in the future. But
I'm fine with following Vanderbilt. I got no issue with that. I'm just really tired of picking Missouri.
You know what that means? We're following Missouri this season now too.
Motherfucker. TCU at SMU next. This one's on the CW. SMU hosting the Horned Frogs. Man, TCU's got to be pissed coming into this one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And TCU that's exactly why I'm rolling with them.
Injury.
You and Tug going with the Pony Express, though. What's going on here?
So, Preston Stone is no longer the starting quarterback for SMU. They have turned things over to Kevin Jennings, who does a lot more than Preston Stone ever could. The pure marble statue back there in the pocket is no more. Jennings can actually run a little bit, which is exciting. He was the best part of SMU when they played BYU. And maybe he'll be the best part of SMU when they play TCU. Nice little 3-letter agencies all around right there.
Moving right along, we have Liberty hosting East Carolina. Tug seems to be the only one that's trusting ECU right now. You and I both going with Liberty. I wish he was here to explain himself.
Well, here's the thing, though. When he picked ECU, they won, and then he didn't pick ECU, and they lost. And now he's picking ECU again. I don't know what to do with myself. This is very potentially Liberty's hardest game left on their schedule. So maybe Western Kentucky coming to town late in the season will give Liberty a challenge at Appalachian State next week. We'll see. I don't even know if Appalachian State's very good. East Carolina has a shot at least. And I don't know that Liberty's all that amazing this season. I mean, New Mexico State sure gave them a run for their money in the first half. So somebody put that together for 2 whole halves. Now we're talking.
Right.
I am picking Liberty, though.
Moving
All that
right
say,
along.
I'm picking Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all picking. Well, Tug's not, which is annoying.
Yeah. All of us that are here are picking Liberty.
Next up, we have Penn at Delaware. We're all going with the Blue Hens.
Yeah, the last of the Ivy League games this Saturday. The latest one starting at 6 p.m. That's very Ivy League for you. At Delaware, though, Delaware's last season in the FCS as well. They're doing very well for themselves. It doesn't matter, though. They're ineligible for everything. Ineligible for a CAA title, ineligible for the FCS playoffs. This is considered the first year of their transition. So, which I understand it on this end.
Yeah.
Because the scholarship limit doesn't apply to them anymore. The FCS scholarship limit doesn't apply because this is the first year of their transition. They're allowed to have more scholarship players. I get not letting a team be eligible for the playoff if they have more scholarship players than everybody else in the division. What I don't understand is why next year they'll be ineligible for a bowl game
So will Missouri
at the
State.
FBS level.
Yeah.
I know.
Ridiculous. Brutal. Pisses me off. But moving on to our next game, ETSU at Elon. You can catch this one on Flow Sports. I'm going with the Muskrats. Phoenix. Elon's going to take this one. It's time. It's time.
You would think that. After seeing what East Tennessee State did against North Dakota State, everybody's a little bit riding high on the Bucks, which I want to test that wave. I want to see how it goes, see how it feels. ETSU hasn't been great in the past. They got themselves a new coach. They really invested. They pulled Lamb away from Gardner Webb, which felt unreal to me. Why would you leave Gardner Webb after having the success you've had there? But then to turn ETSU around and have a 3-point game against North Dakota State last week, hey, maybe there's something to this. It's at Elon, but that doesn't really scare me because it's at Elon. Not like the Phoenix have been that great either. If ETSU loses this game, I'm going to cool down and we're not going to talk about ETSU anymore. If ETSU wins, there might be something here actually already this season.
We shall see. We shall see. Next up, we have Furman at William and Mary. Again, man, how can you pick against William and Mary right now? And none of us are, by the way. Doug's going with ETSU for what it's worth.
I know none of us are going with Furman, but it does feel like it's a little bit of the short end of the stick. They lost to Charleston Southern, and everybody lost their minds, including me. I can't explain that one. Furman shouldn't have lost that game based on what we know about the Paladins. But they did turn around and beat Stetson 48-7. Maybe Furman needed a wake-up call after losing 76-0 to Ole Miss. They need a little wake-up call. Hey, you guys are a football team. You need to play for some football. They better bring their A game against William and Mary. I know that for sure. We're all picking the Tribe, though. Very interested to see how this goes.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Miami at South Florida. And while we are all taking the U, I just want to say I could definitely see USF winning this game, which I'm sure is why you why you picked this one for us to pick.
I know it's at South Florida too. Very fun.
I do not have the confidence in South Florida right now to actually take them.
Same. It's a very similar story with Northwestern at Washington. It's like this feels like one of those knockdown, drag out Big Ten battles of old. Yeah, very funny. But honestly, Northwestern and Washington probably play a very similar style of game this year in that they are not going to wow you with anything in particular, but they're not bad at just about everything. They're not bad. It's at Washington. We're all going with Washington. This probably is a lot tighter than people realize.
Here's one that I'm interested about, and I think it's bore out of one. As a Memphis fan, I need FSU to win, but two, FSU is really bad. Cal at
Mhm.
Florida State. I am going with Cal. Tug is going with Florida State. What has swayed your pick?
Honestly, a lot of this has to do with Cal having to travel all the way across the country like this, playing a little conference game here against the Florida State team that's got to be so sick and tired of this already. And it's not like Cal has been lighting anybody up. They beat Auburn by 7, but as we've talked about already, it's not like Auburn's really that good. Congratulations, you beat San Diego State. That's not going to impress me much. I don't know if Cal being 3-0 or Florida State being 0-3 is more surprising, though, at the same time. Like, I don't know if I would have predicted either of those things.
See,
Start
and
the year.
you mentioned Cal having to come all the way across the country. They went out to Auburn and beat them. So
I know.
man,
Florida State's got to win at some point, you know?
I would hope so, but holy shit, if a preseason number 10 team starts 0-4, I will stand on a table and scream that we don't need fucking preseason rankings. We don't need to rank anybody until week 5.
Well, you're in luck because the playoff committee rankings don't come out until after that, actually. If Florida State loses this game, it's very probable they start the season at least 0-6. And then you're looking at Duke being your best shot. Then you're at Miami.
I say they'll beat SMU. They should have beat Boston College and Georgia Tech too. It's just
We're
gonna be extra funny to me when Florida starts 0-4 with 3 home losses. That's what's gonna be the funniest part about it to me.
we might be looking at a 3-win Florida State team.
How fast do you think they're gonna get Mike Norvell out of town?
I'm surprised he's not already gone, actually. In
They
some ways.
since they bitched about not making the college football playoff, which I fully supported, by the way, they're 0-4 and
Yeah.
embarrassingly so in every single one of those matchups. Because let's face it, there is no reason Memphis should have won, and Memphis fucking dominated them, by the way.
Actually, really good point here, though, that there is a coach out there who has national championship pedigree. He's available at the moment, and he has some familiarity with the state of Florida. You really ought to consider bringing in a guy like Jimbo Fisher.
I mean,
See how that goes.
I mean, next up,
Next up,
Toledo.
a huge battle in the
Yeah,
group of 5 here. Toledo, after beating the piss out of Mississippi State, uh, they're heading to Western Kentucky, who is doing well so far this season, but also just lost their quarterback, TJ Finley, to injury. I don't know who Western Kentucky's quarterback is now. It's some true freshman that I've never heard of. I'm going with Toledo at Western Kentucky.
I think it's very fair to go with Toledo, but I also think you're underestimating just how bad Mississippi State is. And I think Western Kentucky would probably do something similar. So for that reason, I'm going with the Hilltoppers. Tug's also going with the Hilltoppers. Don't know why.
You can say that. I don't believe Western Kentucky would do that to Mississippi State. My evidence for that is that Western Kentucky lost to Alabama 63-0, and I don't think Alabama would beat Mississippi State 104-7.
Yeah, because they would put their third string in at some point.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Math doesn't math.
Eastern Illinois at Illinois State is our next game. Tug and I are going with the Panthers. I just want Illinois State to lose. I dislike them more than I dislike Eastern. So
Fair enough. I don't have any great analysis for this. I just feel like it's going to be a pretty close game.
I think it's going to
I
be
legitimately
interesting.
don't know who's going to win.
Every team besides Western Illinois, we're going to forget the Leathernecks exist for a little bit, but every college football team in the state of Illinois, public school, has done very well this year. And really, Northwestern's doing about as good as you could expect them to do.
Mm-hmm.
This legitimately will be a good, fun football game to watch.
Very easy point there. Western Illinois doesn't count as a football team. They haven't proven they deserve that title. So, yeah, it's fair to say every football team in the state of Illinois is doing very well.
Public school.
Next up, Missouri State at UT Martin. I'm not going with Skyhawks for vibes anymore. Missouri State, yeah, they're the better team. Not like they're better than everybody, but they're better than UT Martin.
Yeah, it's not hard to be better than Martin. Anyway, we all going with Missouri State there. I want to get on to the rivalry matchup, SEMO at Southern Illinois. SIU having to go away from their starting quarterback, DJ Williams, and go with the local kid, product out of Marion High School, my rival growing up.
Mm-hmm.
SIU riding that local kid. They got a local kid coaching. I think it'll work out for them. I'm not deterred by this. The passing game's had its kinks as it is already, so I think they're going to be able to work it out. This might be the change that they needed to get this offense really going.
That'd be cool. I'm rooting for that for sure. I don't have confidence in SIU like as a contender in the Missouri Valley, but I have enough confidence in SIU that they'll beat SEMO. This is on here because it's a ranked versus ranked matchup. Honestly, I was considering not putting it on here because I think it's going to be a shit show for SEMO. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overlooking them. I don't think I am. Tug's picking SEMO because he's nuts.
Yeah, I don't. Again, he's not here to defend himself. Next up, Tennessee at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma has a legitimate chance at home. If this game was in Knoxville, I would take UT for the record. I wouldn't like it, but I would do it. That said, I like what Oklahoma's done so far this year.
That's fair and all. And I know you're going to clown me on this next point because it is Kent State. But Tennessee was up 65-0 at half. That is impressive.
It is.
No matter who you're playing. They also decimated NC State.
That's true.
Apparently so badly that Grace McCall ain't even starting there anymore. I think Tennessee is very potentially an elite team this year.
They have been scary. I will say this. I will 100% say this. Whoever wins this game is staking their flag, not just in the SEC, but on the national scene this year.
Sure.
Because for all the reasons you've mentioned, if Tennessee comes out and does that again, obviously, right? But if Oklahoma comes out and beats them, and Tennessee picks back up where they left off after this game, how good is Oklahoma really?
Scary for Oklahoma. They have 5 teams in the top 10 right now on their schedule, including this Tennessee game. They also have to play Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Alabama. Tennessee, on the other hand, gets a little bit better. They only have to play Alabama and Georgia upcoming as their only ranked opponents.
Oh, man.
So
they got it easy.
Yeah, very, very breezy schedule there. I do feel like the winner of this game has a better shot at the playoffs, but the loser of this game is certainly not out of it, thanks to being in the SEC and having the kind of schedule they do. So if this is a close game and we're talking about a late touchdown or something to win it for either one of these schools, we're still talking about both of them as playoff contenders for sure.
I think so. Next up, Bowling Green at Texas A&M. We are all going with the Aggies here. I'm curious why you wanted to pick this game up this week.
Yeah, I purely wanted to pick this game because, well, I say purely, but then I have two reasons, actually, because I just came up with a second reason. My first reason that I was saying purely for, Bowling Green took Penn State to the wire last week for no reason, and that's very fun, and I want to see that happen again. And two, I think Texas A&M is worse than Penn State. And if Bowling Green could do that to Penn State at Penn State, what can they do at Kyle Field? That would be so awesome if the Falcons can beat Texas A&M, because Texas A&M sucks and they deserve to lose to Bowling Green. Also, this would prop up the MAC as the best Group of 5 conference in the country. With an SEC win and a win over Notre Dame, the MAC champions get into the playoffs, baby. Get ready for playoff MACtion. I cannot wait. I need this in my life.
But you don't need it so much that you're picking Bowling Green, so we know how you.
No, I don't actually have faith in them winning. It would just be so much fun that I wanted to watch the game, and because of that, I wanted us to pick the game. I need to have it on everybody's radar that this would be incredible.
Fair. Next up, we have a Big Ten matchup: Iowa at Minnesota. Tug and I going with the Hawkeyes. You're taking the Gophers.
The Floyd of Rosedale. Yeah. I put my faith in Iowa already once this season and had since had to regret it. This game is in Minnesota. It's a rivalry game, and both teams are kind of mid, which means it's a coin toss game. And what do coin toss games do? They usually get picked by me in favor of the home team. Also, Max Brosmer is very fun. Again, another quarterback that I would absolutely despise having on Ohio State, and my heart would stop every time that he's on offense. And he doesn't really throw the ball that well, but he's really fun. And so if I'm rooting for anybody in this game, it's the chaos and the enjoyment. And weirdly enough, I've never said this before in my life, I would have more fun seeing Minnesota win this game than I would seeing Iowa win this game. That's a wild statement. This year, it's finally true. Congrats, Gophers. You did
it. Next up, and I don't know if you did this on purpose or if you just accidentally picked it, but we have the red bandana game, and for some reason, you're picking against Boston College and going with Michigan State here.
I know. It'd be nuts, wouldn't it?
Is that why you picked them?
Yeah, it'd be so crazy if this happened.
Dude, this Boston College team.
It'd be wild. Mm-hmm.
Tug's also going with the Eagles here. They have played extraordinarily well through the first 3 weeks of the season, even in this loss to Mizzou, right? We already talked about it. They controlled at different points of the game, probably should have won, couldn't finish it out. That's a different discussion. They're not losing the red bandana game.
Wouldn't it be crazy? Michigan State's 3-0. They have not played poorly.
They haven't played anybody. They played Maryland and barely beat them.
Yeah, they beat the crap out of Prairie View A&M, baby. One of those Boston College wins you're hyping up is against Duquesne, all right? You can't say too much. Florida State's 0-3. It's not like that's that impressive anymore.
I'm hyping up a very close game against Mizzou more than I'm hyping up any of their wins. Let's be real here.
Yeah, I'm banking on the fact that Mizzou overlooked them more than anything. Yeah, it's Boston College. Oh, the number 24 team in the country. Congratulations, Boston College. You're getting knocked out immediately. So then they had to come back and win at the end. Yes, Boston College should win this game. Man, it'd be cool if Michigan State won this game. I'm not gonna lie, it'd be very fun.
It would be fun, but I don't think it's happening.
Next, Idaho at Abilene Christian. I was just hyping up Abilene Christian as potentially a legitimate contender for something this year. Hey, if they can beat Idaho, now we in business. Idaho needs to stay on track here if they want to be considered a legitimate national title contender. I don't know that they are or not yet, but beating Abilene Christian by more than Texas Tech beat Abilene Christian would be a nice start to my faith in the Vandals.
Very, very interesting. I don't know how anybody takes Abilene Christian right now. Idaho is very hot going into this game. They're kind of becoming an FCS darling, I would say. I could see Abilene Christian doing something, right? As you said, Idaho's making me a believer.
You are Idaho.
Next up, we got Fresno State at New Mexico. I'm calling this as New Mexico's first win.
That would be very fun. And I am rooting for that. I'm also picking Fresno State.
As is Tug.
Yes.
We all took Idaho, by the way, in case that was not clear.
And then Purdue at Oregon State, another CW game. That's the only reason we're picking this, actually, because Purdue sucks. But it's on the CW, so anything's possible. But it's at Oregon State, and it's Purdue. So we're all picking the Beavers.
And they need this to get right and, get on with the season, see if they can make something happen this year.
They didn't look too bad before getting crushed by Oregon in duck-faced Beaver Carnage.
Oregon finally decided to remember to play football and how the game works, and so that's how it went for them.
This is finally one of 5 games for Oregon State that will be on the CW this year, by the way.
Jesus Christ.
Wild.
We're going to pick a lot of Oregon State games, aren't we?
Purdue, Colorado State, UNLV, San Jose State, and Washington State all on the CW.
Unreal. Last but not least, number 46. That's right. We picked 46 games this week in an effort to pick less games. We have Kansas State at BYU, and I hate that I'm picking against Kansas State again. I didn't want to, but when I sat and really thought about it, I have a lot of faith and a lot of love for BYU's defense right now.
I know.
So I'm riding with the defense at home.
And I was with you for a minute. I couldn't bring myself to actually do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. Kansas State has looked dang good. And yes, that Tulane game was very close. It was at Tulane in New Orleans. That should be a consideration for this. Other than that, Kansas State has looked dang good. And I do fully expect K-State to be up there in the Big 12 title conversation basically every year. They've proven that's where they belong, at least in that conversation. It feels like a 3-team race with them, Oklahoma State, and Utah. They need to go out and prove that. If BYU wins this game, BYU inserts themselves in that conversation, though, which is wild. They'd be 4-0 with a legitimate shot. That's doing something crazy.
And I will say, 3,500-foot elevation change, BYU at home here, it's going to play a factor. It's not going to be it's not the biggest factor, right? It's not like going to Denver or anything, but it is going to play a factor. Man, I like BYU here. I really do.
And you would,
again, especially after last week, you think I'd have learned my lesson picking against Kansas State, but
I do get it, but I'm picking the Wildcats. So is Tug.
Yeah. Man.
I got to make up some ground somewhere. I got to be logical somewhere. It can't just be Michigan State logic everywhere. It would be interesting.
It would be interesting. Wow, what a great podcast.
What a long podcast, more like it.
I mean, we're really about the same amount of time as the other ones, you know.
Yeah, but it's only two of us this week, which means that we've been talking for a lot.
And I'm still not fully recovered from whatever crap I had earlier, as you've probably all unfortunately had to hear me cough into the microphone a few times.
Oh, it was glorious. Enjoyed every second of it.
I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm trying to turn away. This thing's just pretty good quality.
It's all right.
Anyway, Tug's not here to read the links, so I guess that leaves it up to me.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Me.
If you would like to donate some money to the podcast, help us improve, and I don't know, it won't help me get rid of my cough, but it might help other things sound better. Check us out on patreon.com/BDT football, or you can head on over to twitch.tv/Big Dudes in the Trenches. It is September. Subs are 25% off for the rest of the month here. You could also check us out on Twitter or X at BDT Football, Facebook.com/BDT Football, and Instagram.com/BDT_football. Although I will admit, not doing a lot on any of the social media platforms lately. Come talk to us. Get us more involved there. Check us out at bdtfootball.com. And if you have a question for the show, you can email us at mailbox@bdtfootball.com. We'll answer it on the air, I promise. Or, if you head on over to YouTube or Twitch, like we talked about earlier, youtube.com/Big Dudes in the Trenches, all one word there as well. You can check us out, ask us questions live on the show, YouTube, Twitch, doesn't matter. We'll answer them. It'll be a fun time. Last but not least, the place where we are most active, and as you can see Doug saying, join the Discord, please. Discord.gg/9 lowercase g uppercase x 3 lowercase pt uppercase g 36 capital E. Suck it, Tug. Hey, Doug.
Before we do that, I forgot a game. Do you want to make a pick for Georgia Tech Louisville right now? Live
Yeah,
on
but
air?
how are you going to get Tug to make a pick?
I don't care. He loses automatically.
It's an auto. Make it a draw for him, so it's half a point.
No.
Georgia Tech Louisville.
I'll make it unofficial. It's not going to count for the stats. But I did mean to include this. I did mean to include this game, and I completely forgot. So the way ESPN works, if you have a favorite team, which I did put Louisville as one of my favorite teams, and I haven't changed that since I've graduated from Louisville. I don't really care about the Cardinals, but they always show up at the top of my list of games.
Yep.
So it's at a 3:30, and they didn't show up in the list of 3:30 games, so I completely forgot about it. But Georgia Tech at Louisville is fascinating this weekend, and I actually don't know who's going to win that game. Louisville is 2-0 and number 19 in the country, but Georgia Tech would very easily sneak back into that top 25 with a win here at Louisville. The Cardinals are 10.5-point favorites, though. It does feel like Louisville's to lose. Georgia Tech, so much fun this year, though.
Yeah, but this is another game where even if Georgia Tech might maybe be back on the rise a little bit, it's a tough one for them to come in and win. And oh, by the way, this is their 5th game of the season. Not having a bye week since that week 0 matchup against Florida State in Dublin. This is going to be a tough one for them to come in and win. Yeah, I think Louisville's the pick here.
And then they finally get a week off before going to play Duke. So 2 weeks off in a row. Very nice.
Very nice.
All the Duke hate this episode. Duke catching all kinds of strays.
Catching all the strays. Doug.
Well, yes. All right. Finally ready for you.
Why did the coffee file a police report?
Ooh. Nope. Not saying that.
It got mugged.
Okay, that's a good one. That's not where I was going. Figure it out, folks. Say it in the Discord when you join, and we'll give you.
Yeah, let me know if you copied my link as I spoke it into the world, and that's how you joined our Discord. We'll give you special permissions for something. Anyway,
Absolutely.
all the links are going to be linked down in the description below. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Should we do Tug's thing on the way out?
Fuck no.
All right, then we're doing
Bye.
my thing. Peace out, Girl Scout. We'll see y'all next week.